Hey Crossway students, glad to be back with you. We're going to be in Philippians chapter 1, verses 27 to 30. It's going to be a shorter text, so I'm going to go ahead and just read it for you guys. I hope you've spent some time praying and reading it on your own and working through kind of our 6 main steps of prayer, reading, observation, ask, application, and sharing. But I'll just go ahead and read our text for today. It says, "Only let your manner of life be worthy of the gospel of Christ, so that whether I come and see you or am absent, I may hear of you, that you're standing firm in one spirit, with one mind, striving side by side for the faith of the gospel, and not frightened in anything by your opponents. This is a clear sign to them of their destruction, but of your salvation, and that from God. For it has been granted to you that for the sake of Christ you should not only believe in him, but also suffer for his sake, engaged in the same conflict that you saw I had, and now hear that I still have." So I was reading through this text today. There was a number of things that stuck out to me. So once again, this is kind of in that observation piece, making observations of the text. I love that first phrase, "Let your manner of life be worthy of the gospel of Christ." Another translations might say, "Behave as citizens worthy of the gospel." In essence, Paul's saying, be who or what you already are. Live like someone who's been redeemed. Live like someone who's been restored. Be who or what you already are. Live out your identity. And so I was just writing some of the different ways that could be phrased. But then the other thing that kind of struck me as I was reading through this is Paul's kind of writing once again from jail, and he wants to hear that they're standing firm in the gospel, but not just in the gospel. He wants them united together as they contend for the faith, as they stand for the gospel, as they're not afraid or worried by their opponents. And so he's calling them to stand together. And that's one of the things I was just thinking about. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but the beauty of even while we're not together physically, we can stand together as we live for Jesus in our various contexts wherever we're at right now. But we'll talk about that a little bit more in the application piece. And then I think the end was the last thing that I just wrote down when I was thinking about observation, because he says in verse 29, "For it has been granted to you for the sake of Christ that you should not only believe," so he calls them not only to believe, but also to suffer for his sake, engaged in the same conflict. That's the fight for the gospel. And so I just want to remind us, it was a reminder for me that suffering is normal. It's natural. It's a part of this life, especially a part of life for those who are in Jesus. And so, yeah, those were some of the things I was observing. I think my one question I had to go take a look at was that verse where it talks about, in verse 28, "This is a clear sign to them of their destruction." I remember writing down, I was like, what in the world does he mean by that? So as I studied that a little bit more, I think what the author is trying to say, what Paul's trying to say here is, as the Philippians live in a way that's courageous, not frightened by their opponents, that's going to be a testimony to unbelievers of God. And then if they continue to walk away from God, that's where they'll meet their destruction. That's the spiritual destruction at the end of their life. And so I think they're connecting some of those pieces, that opposition, that courage to stand, the testimony that is, and that unbelievers will then face destruction. So when I was thinking about application, I wrote down 3 things that just struck me that I was thinking about. Just wanted to ask myself the question, where am I not walking in a manner worthy of the gospel? Where am I not living like a citizen that belongs to Jesus? So whether it's being impatient here with the kids, or even maybe wasting time when I should be focusing on other things, or not seeking out certain conversations or people that I need to be doing. I want to walk in a manner that's worthy of the gospel. So I asked myself that question. The second one is I want to suffer well for the gospel. I think sometimes we suffer for wrong reasons. So this is not a call to suffer for being dumb or for being a jerk or being mean to other people or making fun of other people and then people being upset at us. This is a call to suffer for the gospel's sake. And so that's suffering when when you share your faith with somebody and you get rejected. That's suffering when you decide to stand up for what you believe, even among other Christians, and get looked down on or made fun of. Sometimes, unfortunately, in the church, particularly in youth ministries, it's the kids who want to live for Jesus that sometimes can be pushed out to the sides and made fun of. And God is just saying, and here in Philippians, He's calling us to suffer for the right reasons. That's standing for our faith. And then the other thing I was just struck by is I want to be a part of this encouragement that Paul is kind of leaning into. He wants them to live out the gospel as he's lived out the gospel, and he's trying to breathe courage into the Philippians. Encourage means to give courage, and so I was just thinking, I want to do a good job of giving courage, being an encouragement to those around me, whether it's my family or you guys or my volunteer team as we spend time together, having digital conversations through video calls and stuff. I want to be an encouragement. So when it comes to share, that's just a great question. I want you guys to think about who needs to hear about what God is teaching you through Philippians. Think about a friend. Think about a family member. Think about somebody that you can share that with, a neighbor. Are you ready to stand for the gospel? Not in being a jerk or being immovable, but somebody who holds deeply to what Jesus has done for them, is living that faith out regularly wherever they're at. And I just pray that that's the kind of student, that's the kind of citizen that you can be, particularly a citizen of the gospel who belongs to Jesus. So love you, students. We'll talk with you again soon. Keep reading through Philippians, reading in other places of scriptures as well. But I hope you're growing deeply in your love for the Word and in your love for God. You're not alone. I'll talk with you again soon.